You felt it this morning. Maybe it was small. A heaviness you couldn't name. A gray feeling that sat behind your eyes before you even checked your phone. You made coffee. You stared at nothing. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you wondered if something was wrong with you. But here is what nobody tells you. That feeling is ancient. It is older than language, older than fire, older than the first word any human being ever spoke. And the way your ancestors handled it is so different from what you do today that it might change how you see sadness forever. What did ancient humans do when they were sad? The answer starts not with a therapist, not with a pill, not with a self-help book. It starts with a body. Your body. The same one your ancestors carried across savannas and through ice ages for 300,000 years. A body that was never designed for the world you live in now. Anthropologist Robert Sapolsky spent decades studying stress in primates. What he found was startling. The stress response in humans and in baboons is almost identical. The same cortisol spike, the same shutdown of digestion, the same narrowing of focus. But baboons in the wild recover from stress in minutes. You carry yours for days, sometimes years. The difference is not biology. The difference is the world around you. Ancient humans did not have the luxury of sitting alone with their sadness. This is the first thing you need to understand. For the overwhelming majority of human existence, you lived in a band of 20 to 50 people. These were not acquaintances. These were the only humans you would ever know. Your survival depended on every single one of them. If you were sad, they noticed. They had to notice. A member of the group who was withdrawn, disengaged, or emotionally collapsed was a vulnerability. Predators were real. Winter was real. An inattentive hunter or a distracted gatherer could get the whole band killed. So sadness, in the ancient world, was a social alarm. It was not hidden. It was not something you processed alone in a dark room with a screen. It surfaced in front of other people, and other people responded. Not with advice, not with platitudes. They sat with you. They touched you. They stayed close. Researcher Matthew Lieberman at UCLA has shown that the human brain processes social rejection and physical pain in exactly the same neural regions. Your brain does not distinguish between a broken bone and a broken relationship. The same regions light up. The same distress signal fires. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. Loneliness to your ancient brain is a life-threatening emergency. Your ancestors felt this truth in their bones, even if they had no words for it. When someone in the group was in pain, they gathered. Not formally, not with a plan. They simply came closer. The Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer populations on Earth, still do this. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe spent years living among them and observed something that modern psychology has only recently begun to understand. When someone in the group was suffering, the group reorganized itself around that person. They moved camp if they needed to. They redistributed food. They adjusted the entire social structure of 20 or 30 people so that the suffering one was not on the outside of it. You were never meant to be alone with your pain. The second thing ancient humans did when they were sad was move. Not go to the gym, not run a half marathon. Move the way bodies were built to move. Walk, carry things, dig, build, dance. The archaeological record shows that even in grief, even in mourning, ancient humans kept their bodies in motion. Neuroscientist Kelly McGonigal has spent years studying what she calls the stress response challenge. When the body moves, especially rhythmically, the brain releases a cascade of chemicals that modern science is only beginning to map. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, floods in. It literally rebuilds neural pathways. Serotonin rises. The feeling does not disappear, but it changes shape. It becomes something the body can carry instead of something the body is crushed under. Your ancestors did not have a word for depression, but they had something that protected them from it. They moved their bodies every single day, not by choice, but by necessity. And that constant movement was a biological anchor. It kept the nervous system from collapsing inward. Think about what you do when you are sad today. You sit, you lie down, you scroll, you go still. You do the one thing 300,000 years of evolution never prepared your body to do. The third thing ancient humans did when they were sad was ritualize it. This is the one that is hardest for modern people to understand. Every human culture in recorded history has developed rituals for grief and suffering: wailing, drumming, fire, specific songs sung only at death, special foods prepared only in mourning, clothing torn or removed, paint applied to the face, haircut, hair grown out. These were not performances for other people. They were technologies for the self, ways of giving shape to something formless, ways of telling the body that what it feels is real, that it is seen, that it will pass. Psychologist David Kessler, who spent decades working alongside Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on grief, observed something that cut against everything modern culture tells us about sadness. Grief that is witnessed heals faster than grief that is hidden, not because the ritual itself has magic in it, but because the ritual gives the nervous system a container, a beginning and an end, something to move through rather than something to drown in. Ancient humans understood this without studying it. They lived it. When someone died, the whole group stopped. They did not schedule grief around the rest of life. Life stopped for grief. Then grief stopped, and life resumed. You have inherited a world that does the opposite. You are expected to grieve between meetings, to mourn while hitting deadlines, to be sad on your own time and functional on everyone else's. This is not strength. It is a mismatch between what your nervous system requires and what your civilization will allow. The fourth thing ancient humans did when they were sad was tell stories. Not therapy, not journaling, story. Around a fire at night, when there was nothing to do but exist together, humans narrated their experience. This person died, and this is what they were like. This hunt went wrong, and this is how we survived. This season was hard, and this is what we felt. The act of narrating suffering out loud in front of listeners is one of the oldest human behaviors we know of. It predates writing by hundreds of thousands of years. Psychologist James Pennebaker at the University of Texas spent 20 years studying what happens when people put their pain into words. In study after study, people who narrated their suffering, even just in writing, showed measurable improvements in immune function, in mood, in long-term psychological health. The act of telling the story reorganizes the brain around the experience. It shifts the suffering from something overwhelming and formless into something with a shape, a cause, an arc. Your ancestors did not know this scientifically, but they built entire civilizations around it. Every oral tradition, every mythology, every fireside story told in the dark. They were doing instinctively what Pennebaker would spend a career proving in a laboratory. You were designed to narrate your pain to other people. And here is the fifth thing, the one that cuts deepest. Ancient humans let sadness end. Not by forcing it to, not by suppressing it or medicating it or distracting themselves out of it, but by living in a world where sadness had natural limits. You moved through it with your body. You shared it with your group. You ritualized it and narrated it. And then the sun came up, and the fire needed wood, and the children needed feeding, and life pulled you back in. Not because the pain was gone, but because life was louder than pain. Because the texture of daily existence, the constant small tasks of being alive in a wild world, was rich enough to absorb even grief. Researcher Paul Gilbert at the University of Derby has written extensively about what he calls the compassionate mind. He argues that much of modern suffering is not caused by the original pain, but by what the mind does with the pain when left alone with it. The brain loops, it ruminates, it compares and catastrophizes. It does this because it was never designed to process suffering in isolation. It was designed to hand the suffering off to the group, to the body, to the ritual, to the story, and to let those systems do their work. Today, you are carrying pain in a brain that was built for a village. You are expected to process alone what was never meant to be processed alone. Think about this the next time that gray feeling sits behind your eyes before you check your phone. You are not broken. You are ancient. You are running software written for campfires and savannas in a world of blue light and empty rooms. Your sadness is not a malfunction. It is a signal. The same signal it always was. A signal that says, find the others, move the body, give this thing a shape, tell someone the story. The last thing your ancient self would ever have done was sit alone in silence and wait for it to pass. And maybe that is exactly where you start.